So let's see how the peat pots are doing. Now, I just lifted the lid off of this one. I have a couple of things coming up. Um, these are my big plum tomatoes that are probably my best seeds. They just really produce a great plum tomato, which is also known as Roma. They're the longer ones, not the round tomatoes, usually used in sauces because they don't yield as much seeds and they have more meat, tomato meat, than they do seeds. And so that's why they're preferred for sauces. You can make a tomato sauce or tomato soup out of any tomato, but these are the preferred ones because they yield so much tomato meat out of the tomato. So these are just absolutely wonderful for that. These are my Kardashians. I told you that in my last video. I call these Kardashians because they indent in the middle. They are have a defect in their seeds where they all come out with this indentation. So they're like waist trainers, and that's why I call them my Kardashians. Um, and then we have bell peppers, sweet bell peppers, lavender. And as you see, my lemon balm is really doing well. I mean, it's really starting to come up. And again, I use these peat pots because the birds love my seeds. So I try to grow inside. And plus, we cannot really put much out until after Mother's Day here in Colorado, except for things like kale and spinach and some onions. Um, things that, produce well in colder weather, like a cabbage. Um, I know I'm forgetting something. The snap peas. They do well in the colder environments. Now, these are more my squashes, and if, as you can see, some are doing really well and some haven't come up yet. So these are, this is zucchini. They call this the black beauties. And then this is acorn squash. This is golden zucchini. I was kind of fearful that these seeds might have not yield something. Another reason why I grow inside first is to make sure the seeds are still viable. But I was a little concerned about these. But if I remember correctly, they kind of come up late, but we'll see. And then peppers are always the last thing to really sprout. And these are a striped pepper, so they kind of have like an yellow stripe in them. And so all these are pretty much seeds. I saved the seeds from vegetables from last year. And so throughout the season, I'll show you how to seed save. So you can produce over and over again without having to buy seeds. And what's great about doing that is not only you don't have to spend money, but is that those seeds are adapted to your garden and the environment that you grew them in. And so they tend to produce better than seeds that you buy off the shelf. So now notice that there's two in each one of these. I always put two seeds in. So I'm going to be pinching off one of these soon. But I don't pinch off the other ones. Like this one, I'll probably pinch this one off here because it's not doing real well. Until I start seeing the first leaf produced from these plants. So your first leaf is going to start coming out in this area, and they're the leaves that look like the squash or whatever plant you're growing's leaf. And those are called the first leaves. So you don't transplant or pinch off until you start seeing those. And in my next updates, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because I put lids over these, I'm probably going to start pulling these out though and putting them in a separate container so I can keep the lid on for these to incubate. And same with these. I'll probably pull these out and then let these incubate longer with the lids on. So that's my update on what I'm growing inside for now, and more updates to come. So happy growing. So I wanted to show you how quick these grow. This is this morning I showed you that my tomatoes were starting to come up. this is the end of the day, that same day. So you saw them this morning, they were just these little nubs coming out, and boom, they're already showing. And then look at how the squash is already showing its leaves since this morning. I mean, this morning they were just these little nubs down in here, and now they're just really ready to transplant. So my Black Beauty zucchinis were getting really root bound in the peat pots. So I've transferred them to other pots, and then when it's warm enough, I'll put them outside. You want it to be at least 60 degrees at night before you put them outside, and no more threat of snow. Now, they hate to be transplanted, so their roots come out of those peat pots, right away, and they start coming out of the netting. And so be really careful when you transplant. Just be very gentle with them. Make sure the hole is deep enough and that you don't push down too hard on them. They're very sensitive to that. But they transplant well. They just don't like their root systems disturbed very much. Now also too, since their root systems are pretty new, you want to get a spray bottle here, and make sure you're spraying their leaves with a spray bottle of water so they could get some water. Definitely water the dirt, but because you just transplant them, their roots are still, getting used to being transplanted and stuff, and they're a little bit in shock. And so if you do the leaves, and they're getting, they're getting water, because this part of the plant is, not so much in shock as the root system is.